Turning now to a story about a police officer who uses poetry to explore his complicated feelings about duty and identity. I spoke with my friend, Officer Shawn Bland of the Englewood, New Jersey Police Department. Officer Bland is a 24-year veteran of the force and also a poet with a book of his own poems coming out next year. We discuss what it's like being a black police officer in America and also what he believes needs to change and how putting his feelings on paper helps him heal. Have you walked outside your door and thought to yourself, I could die today?
Yeah, I have.
Have you been in shootouts before?
One.
What was that like?
It's very surreal. Things slow down. I remember not being afraid because there was no time for emotion. It was just time to react and to live and to survive.
Reality set in?
Yeah, and I was like saying, oh, that was, we almost didn't make it.
Englewood police veteran Shawn Bland still carries with him the emotions brought on by that encounter 20 years ago.
In the abyss, I embraced death, my disease.
These days, he channels those emotions through a pen and a pad.
Put down my shovel, stop digging my ditch. Desire for dying, no longer I itch.
And how has poetry served as an outlet for you as a person and a cop?
Well, as a person, it's been an outlet, an emotional release. Being a cop is not like being an accountant. Your experiences, what you experience from day to day, those experiences pile up like this in real time. If those experiences build up without you being able to interpret them and without you being able to resolve them for yourself, you're gonna overload.
How does being a police officer affect your mental health?
To be quite honest, man, I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder years ago. So I go to counseling, man. I go to therapy to help me manage because I need to be well.
Bland, a husband and father of two, wrote Monster with his children in mind.
I'm trying to survive in America, defenseless to be black.
A poem that tackles the intersection of his identity as an African-American and a cop in America.
My son, my daughter inherited my fear. I can't promise their safety, but they listen, they hear. And then you went on.
My children also American, but not yet free. Framed at conception, America's public enemy.
Usually when a black father is talking to their kids about being black in America, they don't speak from a perspective of being a police officer. What was it like when you're talking to your kids about being young and being black and possibly being looked at as a monster?
That's a heavy conversation. That's a conversation that my counterpart in America does not have with his children. To have a conversation with your son to say, hey, listen, man, you have to carry yourself a certain way. You're 15 years old, you're put together like a man. People are gonna be a little threatened by that.
I remember calling you when I was ready to have that conversation with my son.
That's right.
Nate and Nehemiah. And you gave me a whole checklist. You said if they're driving, turn down the car radio, roll down the windows, put the light on, hands at 10 and 2.
Absolutely, because policemen, we're looking for certain markers. If you do something to arouse them so that their antennas go up, it's gonna be very hard for you to do anything next to make those antennas go down.
The murder of George Floyd by convicted ex-police officer Derek Chauvin recharged the demand for police reform.
I gotta ask you straight up, do you believe that defunding the police is a good idea?
I absolutely do not. I think that it needs to be harder to become a cop. I think that the standards need to go way up. I think that the training should be longer. I think that the background checks should be more thorough. But I don't think defunding the police is the answer, man.
But to people who are on the outside looking in, that doesn't satisfy
I've
them.
given a lot of thought to this. I truly believe that any time a police officer is involved in a gun-related issue, a shooting, a death of any civilian, I truly believe that the federal government should be the investigators. I mean, law enforcement works when you're actually enforcing the law. That's when it works.
Well said. Now, that phrase, defund the police, has become politically charged and does not mean disband police departments. Instead, some communities are pushing to reallocate those funds and resources to other forms of public safety and community support. Officer Bland told us that we need to bridge that gap between police and the communities that they serve. And he makes a valid point. He spoke about the men and women that serve these communities and how we need to create more initiatives so that relationship between the police in those communities aren't so strained.
Yeah, the messaging on defund the police has not been helpful. And I love what your friend said, that law enforcement works when we actually enforce the law. I also like Shawn Bland.
Yeah, Shawn Bland.
Also like that he said that he gets therapy, Nate.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important message to send, that when you're dealing with something, especially for black men in particular, the fact that he could speak about it so candidly and that it has helped him.
He seems
really
like a good
nice.
man, and we need more good men and women going into law enforcement. So that may not be defund the police. It could be quite the opposite, paying a wage and providing the training to make officers get the best people and then make them their best selves.
Yeah.
Make it harder to become a... He said a lot of good stuff.
He said a lot of good stuff.
He said make it harder, yes,
the
to become
requirements of becoming a police officer, and then maintaining that badge, which also using those funds to help with the mental health and making sure they're in the right state of mind while they go out there to protect and serve us.
Has he helped you? You two seem to have a relationship.
Yeah, I call him whenever I have an issue, wherever I have a question. He's the guy that I lean on. He's more than a friend. He's like a brother to me.
Does he help you get out of speeding tickets?
Nah, I just don't speed.
Okay.